Hello YouTube and welcome back to The Zone, where today guys we are going to be doing another Chris Chan article. This is the Game Place saga. So let's just get into this. There's going to be a lot of antics and all of which involving Chris, so let's just try our best to keep things on track, and because I'm pretty sure this devolves very quickly. So let's get started with Chris being oddly prophetic in two ways. So let's see this. I also hope that the game and hobby place in Charlottesville burns to the ground along with Michael Snyder. Yeah. If he's gonna expect, any sympathy from this, then if you're going into this expecting to feel sorry for Chris, don't be, considering what we know is gonna happen. The Game Place, also known as Seville's Hobbies, Games and Toys, was a comic book, video game, card, toy and hobby shop in Charlottesville, Virginia. From at least 2002 up until the summer of 2008, Chris hung out there on a regular basis, going there every Friday without fail to play the Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! TCGs. The shop hosted the Pokemon TCG League, where Chris served as a self-proclaimed volunteer gym leader, though he was not endorsed in any way and was largely simply tolerated by the store. After a long period of increasingly disruptive behavior and repeated warnings from staff, Chris was permanently kicked out of the store by one of the managers, Michael Snyder, on the 6th of June 2008. After his permanent ban, Chris attempted several times to regain access to the store, to no avail thanks to Michael's insistence. Following the judgment after the 28th of October incident, see below, Chris was forced to keep away from Michael Snyder at all times, which by extension meant that he was permanently banned from the store by law after the judgment, up to its closing in June 2014. As of 2015, the premises formerly occupied by the place are now host to Gear Hearts, an artisan chocolate shop. So let's get this ball rolling. Keep note, by the way, of this photograph in particular. This is going to be quite important later on, and I believe this is meant to be Michael Snyder himself. And if you're worrying about why the photo kind of looks like this, they'll explain later. I do kind of know what happens as a result of this, but let's just get started. People of note. Chris originally met Megan Schroeder at the Game Place in 2005, where they bonded over their shared interest in Yu-Gi-Oh! Megan continued to hang out at the shop even after her friendship with Chris collapsed in the spring of 2008. Although the relationship by that point was strained, to say the least, once she broke off all contact with Chris, she did her best to ignore him entirely when they were at the store at the same time. The other two best-known patrons of the shop, aside from Chris himself, are Mims and Lucas. The two friends are the primary source of the most of what is known about Chris's behavior at the Game Place, and most of the information in this article, which they revealed during a detailed Q&A session on the PVCC forums. They're also famous for having taken and uploaded the first photograph of Chris to reach the internet, which Mims snapped and Lucas uploaded to 4chan in the fall of 2007. Michael Snyder was one of the store's managers until he became the owner around October 2011. Chris often mistakenly referred to Snyder as the store's owner long before he purchased the store. Snyder would eventually become one of Chris's real-life enemies when he kicked Chris out of the store in the summer of 2008. Chris's attitude at the Game Place. Chris would rarely ever shake anyone's hand after a game, and when he did, he quickly followed up with hand sanitizer, Mims. Considering we know Chris is not, a health and safety freak, we all pretty much know why he was doing this. Chris, acting his age, I believe playing against also the striped shirts. I don't know, did Chris even once buy any clothes for himself? In his early days at the Game Place, Chris's behavior seems to have been more childlike, for the lack of a better word. According to Mims, who was regular at the store, for the entire time Chris hung out there, Chris avoided using foul language when he first started gaming at the store. He also never failed to show up for Pokemon games in his old Ash Ketchum costume. Again, you're considering Chris was like in his 20s at this point. Let's just bear that in mind. The costume was eventually retired. However, by the time of the 2007 photo, Chris was showing up in his usual clown shirts and Sonichu medallions. And Chris's behavior grew more aggressive and vulgar over the years. According to Mims and Lucas, Chris often became angry at his card game opponents, especially at small children. An October 2007 email from Megan mentions an incident where Chris was extremely threatening and insulting to a guy whom he thought was putting the moves on his gal pal. Mims recounted a few instances of Chris displaying his blatant racism with his dislike and distrust of black people. Of course he would show it. He was openly suspicious of the young black kids he played Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! With apparently because he thought they were going to make off with his cards. Terrific. Chris also nearly managed to earn himself a beating from an older black gamer by the name of TJ. Chris yells at him, "I'm going to smack your effing face down," and TJ stands up like he's going to beat his ass. Chris shrinks back and says, "I mean your face down, monster." No, Chris. I'm gonna say right now, I don't know who the hell this TJ is supposed to be myself, but I'm pretty sure he would have absolutely have beaten Chris's ass. Given because of again how quickly Chris backtracks. Likewise, Chris's homophobia occasionally surfaced when he was hanging out at the shop. A gay regular at the shop by the name of Eric was the target of mockery, insults, and threats from Chris. Although Mims noted that, for obvious reasons, Chris wasn't likely to ever do him any great physical harm. Again, Eric probably could have beaten Chris's ass too. Chris also assumed that the two of the shop's regulars were gay because they happened to exchange a few jokingly romantic remarks. His literal mind took that as proof that they were an actual couple. Oh boy. Chris, the card gamer. Chris was pretty awful at all the games he played. He's no Yugi Moto and he's no Sim Yong Bang either. Mims summing up Chris. Though he apparently spent plenty of money buying new cards at the store and built them into sizable collection of themed decks, Chris didn't have any aptitude for deck building or strategy in the Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card games. Even when playing against small children, he rarely won games or advanced in tournaments. Although Mims recounts one occasion where Chris managed to win a match on a day when most of the regulars players were absent and proudly hollered, "I'm the level up king." This is he thinks he's DSP stanky, and DSP, even when he was doing the Street Fighter 2 Turbo games, they were based on a different system altogether. That's why DSP had such an advantage back then. Oh boy. Actually, I'll tell you what, let me think about this just very quickly. I never played the Pokemon TCGs, but let's think. 2007, 2008 Yu-Gi-Oh! This was, I think, the year before they introduced Synchro Monsters, so fusions were pretty much the biggest deal in the game. I could friggin' build up a deck using any card from that generation. Absolutely. I might not have won every game, possibly, with that sort of combination, but I could have, put my own end up, to say the least. I mean, did Chris have no other practice? I mean, I know fine well there were Yu-Gi-Oh! Games you can buy on the PlayStation and all that. Did Chris never think about trying to practice against any of those? So he might know what to expect. Did Chris even have actually? I don't know. Maybe it's because these things were intended for children, and by the time Pokemon got onto the scene, he was already about 17, 18 years old. Chris often declares that he was a gym leader in the store's Pokemon League, an older player who manages tournaments, keeps tracks of wins and losses, and so forth. It's mentioned on his resume, for instance, and he talks about it in the father call. However, his memory has apparently inflated his role considerably. He wasn't an actual gym leader, says Mims, but rather a substitute who took the place of the regular gym leader on a few occasions. He also wasn't very good at his job, reportedly becoming angry and snapping at the players when he was supposedly to be taken care of. This earned him his first ban from the store, lasting 2 weeks, which, according to Lucas, began on the 4th of April. The thing he put on his resume, that resulted in his first ban. Good job there, Chris. To Chris's very slight credit, Mims said he did resist using his custom Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards in actual games. Wait a minute, hang on, I need to write my nose or something. So, wait, you mean to tell me Chris was using custom... Why would you... No. There's no way anyone would have allowed that bullshit to happen. Like, who the hell... They were probably Sonichu. I can 100% guarantee that they were Sonichu related. Mims and Lucas also noted that he played the Universal Fighting System card game, often playing female characters such as Cassandra and Chun-Li. I wonder why. The gameplays photograph. In the fall of 2007, Chris discovered the Encyclopedia Dramatica page devoted to him. There, he also discovered a blurry photograph of himself, which had been taken and posted to 4chan by Mims and Lucas, respectively. Though he'd already pretty thoroughly blown a gasket over the Ed page, Chris went even crazier trying to discover the identity of the photographer. In an email to Anna McLaren from November 2007, he mentions pestering the staff of the gameplays to go through their anti-theft camera footage to find out who had taken the photo. Unsurprisingly, they weren't very cooperative. According to Mims, Chris complained about the photo and the Ed page so loudly and frequently at the store that the management even eventually threatened to kick him out of the store if he didn't stop. Chris also complained to his mother, who apparently became as angry or more so. At one point, early in November, Chris's parents visited the store and interrogated Mims as to the origin of the photo. After Mims admitted that he had snapped the picture, but feigned ignorance as to how it found its way onto the internet, they threatened to take legal action, but never actually did so. Exactly, because what could they do? Chris's investigations continued on and off for months after he originally found the picture. In an email to Megan sent in March 2008, and oddly situated in between desperate apologies for the porn he drew of her, he recounts an indirect confrontation with Lucas at GameStop on the 8th of March. So it brought up to mind my first word being monkey, so I told Mims that, and with a turnaround towards the accompanying Lucas, I said in his direction, "Well, that's something you didn't know about before about this, Chan." I noticed the look on his face. "Wow, I can totally wail on that tidbit of information." He said nothing. What? I didn't fucking I understood so little from that. We're just going to continue and move on. Chris's idea of subtlety from the Megan emails. Later, Lucas gave his own interesting take on the story. The funniest part about that is that I have no recollection of him saying that to me whatsoever. I had no idea I was even a suspect until I saw that email. On the Mims and Lucas Q&A, Chris gets the boot. Chris's behaviour offended the store's management and customers in a number of ways. Aside from punting his gym leader duties, scaring the small children he played card games with, picking fights with other players, and generally being a racist and homophobic creep, he would truck his video game consoles into the gameplace and take over the shop's flat screen. Why the hell would you do that? That's just the complete asshole move to take. And take over the shop's flat screen TV for considerable amounts of time, loudly sing along to Britney Spears during games, pitch fits inspired by his hatred of the hex box in public, and so on. The straw that broke the camel's back was an incident in the summer of 2008. Oh boy, where Chris got into a shouting match with a young black child. That particular incident triggered Chris's permanent ban from the store. Oh boy. Though Mims stated Mike was looking for any reason to ban him at this point. While Mims' recollection was that the permanent ban took place in August, Chris's correspondence indicates that it must have occurred on the first Saturday of June. Predictably, Chris did his best to resist getting kicked out of the store. He brought his parents in to argue his case with Michael Snyder, to which Michael responded by calling the jerk cops. Good, thank you so much, Michael. Despite a fierce response from Barbara Chandler, Chris and his family failed to move either Michael or the cops. And from the point onward, every indication was that Chris was never to be allowed back into the store. In the Jackie emails, Chris offers his own version of events. The so-called "we" incident, according to Chris, was when Michael Snyder forced Chris to stop bog-arating the TV for his Wii. Doing this apparently caused a number of children to miss out on obtaining a few trade-in only evolution Pokemon. Chris got angry and wrote a letter sign, or simply scrawled a note on the side of a card box stating, "Michael Snyder loves the F out of Mary Lee Walsh." This, Chris claimed, was Michael's last straw, and then he booted him then. According to the Wikipedia article for Megan Schroeder, Chris claims that Megan was there the day he was banned, and claimed that she just stood there in shock, refusing to speak up for him. In reality, of course, she was simply disgusted by his behaviour like any rational person would have been, and relieved that his banning would be the last time Chris would ever be in her sight. Or her brother's sight, for that matter. Also, she refused to defend Chris not because of shock, but because of his sexual harassment, destruction of her dignity, anger issues, and overly immature, ultimately cementing the fact that nobody wanted Chris to ever return to the store. In February of 2011, Chris mentioned in Autism Tutorial Part 3 that he still feels bitter over his banning. I hope that the game and hobby plays birds to the ground along with Michael Snyder. I'm going to sneeze again. Sorry about that. So I think yeah, that's better. Unbanning attempts. Oh boy, let's see how I can't wait for this. Chris repeatedly attempted to overcome his ban and gain readmission to the store. As mentioned in a July 2008 email, Chris sent a letter to Michael Snyder shortly after his initial 1-month ban. In March 2009, he attempted to apologize in the best way he knew possible, posting a video to YouTube on the off chance the individual addressed would see it. This was not the most sincere apology in the world, since Chris made it clear in a later video that he doesn't really understand why he was thrown out in the first place. A month later, in April 2009, Chris attempted to sneak into the store, but when a cashier recognized and caught him, Chris ran away as far as he could. Almost 2 years after his initial ban from the game place, Chris would try again to get the ban lifted. Chris's conversations with Jackie reveal that he attempted to go to the game place after church on the 11th of April 2010, when he was once again recognized by a cashier who threatened to call the cops. Chris got angry and bolted. The next day, Chris visited the store again to talk to Michael Snyder in an attempt to have the ban removed. However, the visit did not turn out in Chris's favour, as the audio from the incident shows. Michael refused to revoke the ban, later noting on YouTube that Chris was actually reading an apology from a pre-written script. This just gets better and better, doesn't it? And Chris took this about as well as he could be expected. He flipped Michael off. Yeah, called him a Jew and left the store in a huff. The police were called about the incident, according to Mims, but Chris was already long gone by the time they arrived. No charges were pressed, likely because nobody was actually physically abused. Later that day, Chris uploaded the audio of the incident to YouTube, accompanied by a description soliciting harassment and trolling of Michael and his fellow employees. However, it was removed from the site in a matter of hours due to a terms of use violation. Considering Chris's anti-Semitic remark directed at Michael, his invitation for others to harass him, and the possibly illegal nature of the recording, it's not hard to see why it was wiped off the website. I'm not angry again, Chris. I'm not angry. I'm just really, really disappointed. I think we all are at this point. Chris has never fully understood why he was kicked out of the store. He never will. According to Mims, Chris didn't see what was wrong with his behavior at the time, and he evidently hasn't reflected on the subject much in the intervening years. During the April 2010 visit to the store, the only possible grounds for his ban he could remember was the aforementioned Wii incident. Later, when he posted an ad on Wikipedia complaining about Snyder's refusal to lift the ban, Chris appeared to believe that the store manager refused to let him in because he hated him personally, and people with autism in general. No, that's absolutely not true. In October 2010, Chris made yet another request to be readmitted, wearing an ancient Pokemon League t-shirt. He apologized for his behavior and said that the ban was his fault, blaming the whole thing on his infamous stress. He also claimed to have only shouted a loud outburst twice. Unsurprisingly, Mike wasn't moved. With Chris's continued failure to overturn the ban, it was clear that his chances of winning entry to the game place were almost as remote as his chances of his duck winning entry to China, without the use of commercial services. The Charlottesville incident. On the 4th of June 2010, Chris visited the game place. He claimed that he wanted to take a photograph of Snyder so he could print it out and use it as a dartboard. Did he say that to Michael? Really? But when Michael Snyder saw him with his camera outside, he chased Chris. Chris claimed that he tried to drive away, but was accosted by Snyder, a woman he didn't recognize, and the police. Snyder's version was more succinct. Christian is in my parking lot right now being grilled by the police. He took pictures of my daughter and tried to run me over with his car. They witnessed this, and I bet they still do nothing about it. The police listened to Chris rant about the trolls for a while and eventually made him delete the pictures and send him home with a warning. Chris did not tell his parents anything, and it would be 2 months before they would learn about it. Crime story. On the 28th of October 2011, Chris and Bob got arrested and ended up facing multiple charges: hit and run for both people, misdemeanor assault, trespassing by Chris, and attacking a law official, Bob. Going by the details of said charges, as well as the photographs uploaded to this very wiki by Chris himself, it can be assumed that the two tried to enter the store. Chris got into a fight with Michael. The two tried and failed to escape the parking lot before the police arrived, damaging something in the process. And when the cops showed up, Bob tried to stop them from arresting Chris. After the incident, Chris used a 10% off coupon found in the local newspaper to produce an anti-gameplays flyer, stating that it was a cyber bullies hangout and encouraging people to stay far away. And you can see that photo right here. It's about as badly put together as you could possibly imagine. He also possibly ruined a perfectly good coupon as well. He also stated that the place would go down by his will or by someone else's fire on a stick and bombs, suggesting he has learned absolutely nothing from his chastening court experience. Google Maps spamming. Oh boy. A scathing review of the place on Google Maps written by one Robert was discovered by trolls. What's notable about this is that the review was written right around the time of the incident. Robert on the gameplays. Owner is very rude and a liar. He banned my autistic friend Chris from the store a couple of years ago. I tried to talk it over with the owner, whose name is Michael Snyder, to see if I could get him to let my friend back to be a customer there again. We wouldn't give me a reason. Yes, that's absolutely Chris trying to impersonate his somebody called Robert, but that's only the beginning. Just recently, he actually had the goal to charge my friend and his widowed mother with some bogus hit-and-run charges. You mean the bogus hitting somebody with intent to cause assault run charges? The employees, however, are pretty nice to try to help you out, but if my memory is going to profit of this utterly contemptible owner, I would much rather take my business somewhere else. Several clues made quite a few trolls suspicious that Robert was actually Chris. The mere fact that his friend has to point out he's autistic from the get-go raises a red flag. And the message is pretty much full of biased contempt towards Michael Snyder, and pretty much sets the tone for his anti-gameplays campaign above. Note also that the words widowed mother is in all caps, something Chris routinely does in his writing when angry. A second review later showed up by someone who identifies themselves as Ben McMullen. The review said, "Owner is a registered sex offender. He has also historically denied service to autistic patrons." It is unknown if this review is by Chris or by a troll, but judging Ben McCullen's other reviews, which include businessmen in Georgia, North Carolina, and Maryland, places Chris has never been, it would appear to be the latter. Another review from Alexander Deck also appeared and looks very similar to Robert's review. "This horrible place kicked my friend Chris out, and for that I can never forgive them." Alexander Deck on the Gameplays. Another review from the Henry Branston is possibly by Chris. "The store has a wonderful and expansive selection of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, which is what attracted me to the store in the first place. Then my cousin mentioned he was banned from the store a few years ago, and that made me realize how nasty the employees are. Upon a visit I took to the Seville's Hobbies, Games and Toys last month. I had the pleasure of meeting who I think was the supervisor, or possibly the owner. His name was Mike, and he seemed like a very nice man, and after only browsing booster packs for 5 minutes, I saw him start screaming at another patron. I don't recall what the argument was about, but it only lasted a couple of minutes. The little kid, who couldn't have been any older than 10, ran out of the store crying. This incident alone, coupled with the fact that my cousin, who already has troubles of his own, was banned for what he says was no good reason, has changed my perception of the store entirely. I would advise anyone who is interested in comics, TCGs, or toy collecting to not visit this store. And if I could say something to that fat 60-something-year-old, I'd tell him to change his business tactics of scaring kids away, because it will only hurt business. Also, it turns out that the owner is a registered sex offender. That is absolutely Chris. I can tell you right now that is. Bob and the Gameplays. A phone conversation recorded in early August 2010 revealed many more details about the odd attitude that Bob and Bob Chandler held and continue to hold towards the Gameplays. During the discussion, they show a total ignorance of how Chris behaved at the store and why he was banned in the first place. Bob shows signs of still holding a grudge over her visit to the store after Chris's final ban, while Bob suggests... Right, sorry about that. Bob shows signs of still holding a grudge over her visit to the store after Chris's final ban, while Bob suggests that he believed that the trolling of Chris somehow originates from a conspiracy at the store. Mike and Megan are the ones that conspire together with a couple of other people. Kids there that I think were gay to persecute and torment Christian for years. No. Bob does not explain why Mike, Megan, and the gay kids, likely a reference to Eric and Tino, would create this grand conspiracy against Chris, but he does go as far as to accuse them of fraudulently obtaining access to Chris's credit cards and bank accounts. Data uncovered a month later shows that Chris wasted tons of money on PlayStation Network cards and games he'll never play, resulting in further debt and an excuse to blame Snyder and the trolls for stealing his credit cards. Fantastic. Chris accepts the game place. On the 4th of April 2013, Chris posted on Facebook, "I, Christian Western Chandler, fully, never ever, forever want to have anything to do with the game and hobby place. It never fell through, but it could have been a genius plan to lure Mike into a false sense of security. Nope, he still wants it scolded." And the 2013 image leak revealed a post that would elaborate more on this development. Amusingly, Chris believed that everyone at the place masterminded the trolling that continues to haunt him to this day, particularly Megan and Mike, who, deemed as the prime trolls, he also called for the place itself to be destroyed. How he expects that to happen is your as good a guess as mine, if only for the reason of ousting a man-child that acted like a jackass in the store. Either way, given the consequences of his actions and his utter refusal to let go of childish things, it seems very unlikely that Chris will forgive or forget the game place. It does, however, raise a valid question concerning Chris. What will he do once his probation ends? Proving once and for all that Chris absolutely refuses to let go of his ban from the game place. On the 4th of October 2013, Chris posted a very angry Facebook post where he shifts all of his blame onto Megan again. In the post, he claims that Megan had been plotting with a Gameplace employee to set up everything in motion to get him banned, from the photo being taken by Mins and Lucas to Megan pretending to kiss a homosexual jerk, thus leading to him getting banned forever. He then goes on to say that he'll continue to curse the Gameplace and Megan until she apologizes for what she's done. He doesn't follow through with that, and if you do know why he never followed through with that, well, I'll maybe explain later, that maybe in a later video, but it's for about the right reasons as you could possibly expect from Chris. The saga ends. In June 2014, information was leaked on the Kiwi farms that seemed to indicate the Gameplace had shut down for good. The historical location of the store was empty, and a poster on the store's glass front indicated that the location was up for rent. Whether the place was apparently shut down because of financial problems, Chris's curses, or other factors remains unknown. But even after the shutdown of the store, Chris continues to hold a grudge against Mike. It is also unknown if the business simply moved away and changed its name to avoid being detected by both Chris and Weens alike. Today. In November 2015, Gear Hearts, a local fine chocolate business, moved to and opened in the former Gameplace site, where it was remained operational to date. Chris mentioned the new store on the second Cat Night interview, saying that he does not feel as it is as good as the place and is not interested in entering, assuming of course that the new tenants allow him back in. In September 2019, 2 years shy of a decade after Chris's ban, rumors began circulating online that a new place had opened in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., once again led by Michael Snyder. Chris has yet to comment on this potential reveal of his old haunt, but one of his orbiters, the malicious Jacob Sockness, chose to harass Snyder in response to this, tracking down a guest book for the funeral to the latter's recently deceased father to torment him over banning Chris. By the time we get to that, the Jacob Sockness saga, because I don't really hold up a grudge against Jacob Sockness, because Chris is full of shit, but Jacob is equally as full of shit. But that, guys, ladies and gentlemen, was the Gameplace saga, courtesy of the Quickie, and oh boy, every single thing that happened that resulted in Chris getting into trouble was 100% Chris's fault. If he had just, if he'd been nicer to people, if he not shouted and wasn't such a, nightmare to deal with, maybe Mims and Lucas would have just forgot about it and just left Chris alone and just let him get on with it. But when they found out exactly what he was doing here, it was one thing piling on top of another. Then again, why would anyone, especially Chris, had to be told that, maybe it's not a good idea, behaving, like a brat in front of children, or, making homophobic or racist slurs, or trying to pick with fights with people you can't win against. These sort of things are the things you don't do. Also, trying to do a hit and run on a guy who runs the store is not a good idea either. So don't even begin to ask me where on earth Chris feels like he's in the right for any of these things. He's not. If he was in the right for any of these, you know what? He just straight up would never have done them. That's the only way you can be in the right. Not being a piece of shit and, not trying to obstruct, private property, or trying, behaving like, a sensible human being would have literally avoided all of these problems. I know that, you know that, but Chris is just somebody who will never understand this because, again, his ego seems to warrant that he can behave differently, except when he decides to, act normally, but we kind of know where that would lead to as well. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed the gameplay saga courtesy of the Wikipedia. Please make sure to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of this saga yourself. And I hope to love you guys again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye for now.